Fabulous. So I am Christina. I am standing in for Chloe, who's organising the seminar series today, and I'm a researcher at the University of Durham and work with Chloe on a project about active travel. And we are very, very pleased today to have Sarah Martin-Denham with us. Sarah is an associate professor of care and education at the University of Sunderland, and she leads externally funded research for a range of organisations and looking at school exclusion, childhood adversities, and service evaluations in children's social care. And Sarah is passionate for children's and caregivers' voices, and that passion stems from experience as a mother, as a teacher, and due to her own neurodiverse abilities. So her ambition is to ensure that children and caregivers are given agency when it comes to making decisions about education and care. Sarah's paper today is called Authentic Co-Production with Children in Research, Pull Up a Chair. And I now pass over to her. I'm really excited to hear what she's going to tell us today.
Thank you, Christina. Hello, everyone. Apologies, I have a cold. If I sound a bit, cold like. So yeah, lovely to see everybody. Thank you for coming. I think I'll just start. I haven't got lots of slides, but it's mainly to keep me on track. So there's not lots. I'm going to show you some films today, and I'm going to be mainly talking to you about Pull Up a Chair, which is a creative arts research project I've been working on. So let me just see if this will still work, hopefully. Sorry, I'm not normally a Zoomer, so let's just go to here. Right. That's the beginning. Right, it's not lots. So I don't know if these are shared afterwards, Christina, but my contact details and everything are on. I'll make sure they're on the slides as well. But yeah, I'm Sarah Martin-Denham, and I'm from the University of Sunderland. And yeah, here to talk to you about creative approaches that I use, that I've developed over the years. So a little bit of background, I suppose, best to start with is my background's education. I'm 100% research now at the university. And over time, I think because I struggled at school, I've become increasingly trying to focus my research around improving school, including inclusive education, and also trying to reduce school exclusion. So for those of you that are less familiar, a suspension is where a child is sent home for a period of time, and children can have 45 days of suspensions a year equivalent. And a permanent exclusion is where they're sent home and they're not allowed to return unless it's overturned at appeal. So what you can see here is the DFE data. And you can see here that the majority of the highest excluding local authorities in England are in the northeast of England. And this seems to be a pattern year on year. So in the year 21-22, so before this data you can see here, when you work out the daily school day rate of exclusions per day in England is the equivalent of 2,999. And if you look at Sarah Martin-Denham on LinkedIn, you will see that at the moment there is a blanket tour in England that I co-produced with parents and children. And this blanket is going around local areas to support conversations about what they can do to reduce their high exclusion rates for preventable exclusions. So what you also can see here is this 2022-23 data, and the equivalent for this year per day is 4,191. What's important to say is these are reported, so this isn't the children who were sent home without it being recorded as a suspension or permanent exclusion. So that's a little bit of context around why this is an issue. So I know from my research, my first commission was in 2016, and that looked at the prevalence of special educational needs across the city of Sunderland, with a focus on rising social, emotional, mental health needs and exclusions at the time. Right, so I'm going to progress on. Now, that's probably not very nice to look at. So let me just explain what this is. So as part of my research, I've spoken to about 400 children across probably about 10 projects. I've spoken to about 100 parents and the equivalent number of professionals. So what I found helpful to do is trying to think about how we can look at points where we can disrupt what is going to be a negative pathway for a child. So this is called a theograph. Please ask questions. Now, I'm not taking credit for doing this. Nathan Scott, my colleague, helped pull this together. So what you can see here, you've got different lanes. You've got the year group along the bottom, so preschool to year 11. Then you've got a family lane. So when I have a conversation with a parent or a child, I can ask them and say, can you tell me about the early years? Can you tell me about your pregnancy? And then what you can do is you can look at what are the positive interactions, so the greens, and what are the risk factors that have happened. And you can see here, this young person had 3 schools, and that the parent first raised a concern when the child was in preschool. The parent requested an education healthcare plan, an EHC assessment, number 7, which is in year 4, but the school declined and didn't support that. Now, that's not the school's legal responsibility to do that. And the legal test is quite a low bar. It's the child may have an SEN or may require special educational provision. Now, looking at this, what you can see is that this child then, the SENCO decides the child needs an EHC needs assessment when the child is in year 6, but it's rejected. Now, if you go right further forward, you'll see multiple suspensions. You'll see a permanent exclusion when the child is in year 10, so the year before GCSEs. And this young person finally gets an EHCP when they are in year 11 at the age of 16. So what I'm trying to do through my research is look at a few things. So how could we better use data that exists on children to prevent this happening, so to prevent this pathway, and what can we do sooner? So what's interesting is this child has lots of greens, year 11, when the 3rd school, so this 3rd school is an alternative provision, there are small class sizes, there's assessments carried out on their needs, and this child flew then. So why can't we have this model happening sooner? So that's really what these are. They take a lot of time to do, but actually, when I've encouraged SENCOs who I've trained for 10 years to do this, sometimes they're able to look at patterns sooner rather than later. Right, so I want to talk a little bit about my approach to research. So it's a phenomenological approach, very hard to say, which is all about looking at the child's or the parents' or the professional's experience of a phenomena. So in this case, school exclusion. So how do they experience that life world? So through that participatory research, when I'm going into schools, I find that predominantly the children have special educational needs and disabilities. So I've got to use a really specific approach. There's an awful lot of work I do before I go anywhere near a child. I speak to parents. I try and speak to SENCOs, pastoral leads, if these children are in school, and I find out what their communication needs are, what their support needs are. And I also look at alternative forms of giving consent. I have found parents struggle sometimes with the lengthy consent forms that are provided, when you do your university ethics, for example. Things like, does a child need a trusted adult present? Do they need a particular environment? Do they need particular lighting? Do they need me to start a sentence with their name? So finding out all of that information. Also, as you probably all know as well, the consent. So getting the parent and the child consent, social worker consent if needed, but also making sure that that consent is ongoing. So I use the stop go cards, paddle things, all kinds of things you can do. So in my research, when I started out in 2016, it was written reports I was doing full of child voice, but it was research reports that were commissioned. And I felt that this approach was scratching the surface. It wasn't getting the depth of kind of responses that I felt the children wanted to say because they didn't know me very well. I was in and out, and actually I wanted to progress forward. So what I started to do was to look at, could I do film work with children from the age of 4 to 21 is the age range I've kind of done pull up a chair with. So currently I've made 20, I'm on my 22nd film with children and young people. And it's a 5-day model. So I work with them over 5 days, 4 hours with a filmmaker and a theatre maker. And very slowly, with support and encouragement and creative activities, we explore things like how they feel about school, what helps them at school, do they feel they belong, what helps them feel like they belong. And I've got examples here of like things, I don't know if you can see because I'm sharing the screen, I can show them better when we come off screen, of the types of different activities that we do. Right, so protection from harm. I just want to say this because I'm going to show you some films. So I've been really mindful, as everybody is, that when you're dealing with a sensitive area like school exclusion, you're going to have children that get upset. And what has been really enlightening to me is how my perceptions, I suppose, of young people, particularly key stage 4, so older young people, I didn't imagine that they would be crying during conversations, because often giving them a space to explore how they feel, they can become upset, and your reaction, because I'm a mum, I suppose as well, is to stop. Like, I'm going to stop talking to you about these things, whereas actually it's not always in the best interest of the child to stop. It's to ask them if they want to stop and then see if they want to keep having that conversation. Because what I have found by doing that, the trusted adult present, whether that's a SEN course or a parent, we can then explore support that's needed. An example was a young person who became quite distressed during a conversation and ended up getting counselling for a friend who died much earlier in his childhood. I do a lot of post-research approach as well, so protection support, so signposting to services, check-ins. So I often have parents on a WhatsApp, and we just do follow-ups. They get to preview all the films before they go public as well. Right. So this is just an example. It is horrendous. It's meant to be me. I don't think it's, I don't think it's very funny, but somebody designed this. So this is for the younger children to try and just help explain to them in a cartoony, fun way what I'm trying to do to get there. There's this thing about consent, isn't there? That how do you make sure that they know what they're consenting to, particularly when I get to film. So in film, I'm looking at showing their faces, showing their faces, sharing their audio. So as part of this consent, I'm making sure that I'm explicit with them. It's going to go on general media. It's going to go on social media. It's going to be used for research and teaching. And that's really hard. So how do we get across to young children, particularly that's what's happening, and their parents? So the kind of approaches you're going to see in the films that I've used, we've got mask making. So this is a really powerful way, and this was with parents, to get them to explore. This is how people see me on the outside. This is how what people think I am, but actually on the inside, this is what I'm feeling. This is what my day-to-day life is. So I've used things like that. I've used bricks, so cardboard bricks. So these get children to share. So we built our own school, what school should look like. You'll see those in a Shine film as well. I've used trees, I've used Russian dolls, I've used all kinds of things. And really, these have all come from saying to children, I want to learn what works for you in school, what helps you learn. How would you like to tell me? And then they say, you can see above me, I've got wings. They might say, well, we'd like to wear wings because we want to show what helps us fly. What would help us fly? So then I go off and I source wings and I take them in. They see the wings, they choose the wings. And it's all about them being at the center of telling their story and using things that they want to use to share that voice. So not me imposing it, but me kind of supporting them to say, okay, so we're going to tell this story. How can we do that the best? And I think that's really important. And that's not often seen in research. It tends to be more directed. So a traditional method of a conversation is you have a list of questions. So how can we do it a bit much more child-centered? Right, so here's just some examples before I get to the films. So examples of children's masks. So really powerful, really easy, a really cheap way to get children to explore and reflect on their feelings, really, in a really powerful way. And through this, I've found that sometimes they can write things that nobody really knows about them. And then support can be put in place as well. So I've used Russian dolls, you can see here, and boxes. So the Russian dolls are really quite good because there's different layers. So what I'd normally do, the first doll, they would make to be themselves. I don't know if you can see on the screen, we've got a happy and a sad. And then on the outside of that, they would put, and I've done this with parents as well, the things that protect their child from school exclusion. So on the protective, they might have family, pet dog, psychotherapy, a good EHC plan, medication review, and they'll have all these protective factors. And then when we can have a conversation about how do we make those protective factors stronger? How do we make these even more protective for the child? And then the next Russian doll layer is the risk factors. So helping parents to explore what are things happening in the community or in school or at home that are increasing the risk of school exclusion for your child. And when I've done this, some parents have said things like, well, easily led, or there's rising numbers of county lines in my area. So it's okay. So what can we do about that? Who can we get to speak to your child? And then the outer layer is what's the impact on my family? And then looking at how we can get supported families. So really creative ways of helping people explore how they can protect children against exclusion. You can see the boxes there as well. So on the outside, how I'm seen. So you've got loud, fussy, white trash here. You've got obsessive, a worrier, a pain. So that's how they think people perceive them, which is really sad. And then inside the box, they've got what's actually going on. So this one here says it's actually chaos. So talking about their life is really challenging. And that's a way for them to express in a way that's going to support them in the future. By giving children activities where they're using their hands, it means there's less emphasis on a conversation between you and them that can feel quite awkward. So having that kind of you're doing an activity, you happen to be having a conversation, just feels like a much more powerful way of doing creative research. Example there of blackout poetry, really easy, really cheap to do, and they enjoy it. So having that opportunity just to express how they feel through that method. And you'll see all of these things in the films that I'm going to share with you as well. Right, so this, I'm going to move towards the films now because I'm mindful of staying on time. So Pull Up a Chair started way back in, I think, about 2019, and it was bringing two groups of children together from alternative provision in Sunderland to kind of share their voice and to be seen. They called it See Me, and we made little origami chairs. So they decided to call the project Pull Up a Chair. And this created one film. And when I show you the link in a moment, it's film 6, that first film, because of it has the early years and primary films first, and then the secondary age and the plus 16. You can see there, then there was 130 children, 4 artists, the national exhibition that took part in the project. Phase 3 was See Me South, which was in Bristol with 15 children, and I put an artist in residence in. And then you can see there's just more and more films. So there's been 9 films with children aged 4 to 16. There's been 8 films with parents of children who've been excluded, 3 films with children from Ukraine who were struggling to have their needs met in secondary mainstream provision, and a film with post-16 young people, And you can see there phase 10 is the current project, which is upcoming. And I'm going to be working with 12 children in Northumberland who are not in school. And alongside that, which is new for me, I'm going to have a living archive exhibition, which is using an online platform, because some of these children, they're not in school. How can we get them to have a voice? So I'm trying an alternative method, which is going to be they can do this from bedrooms, their homes, community centres, wherever they happen to be. Right, okay, are you ready to see it, Phil? I hope you're all still there. I'm not just talking to myself. Okay, let's have a look. Right, so the link on here takes you to this page, which is where I keep my projects. So hopefully you can see there's Minute of Truth, which is the Pull Up a Chair Ukraine. And then we've got Pull Up a Chair School Exclusion. So the first film you see is the Post 16. And I'm going to show you just the first 6 minutes of this one. So you can see what Pull Up a Chair does. So before I start, the 12 young people, they're in a vocational provision. They were really quiet. Many of them hadn't formed sustained friendships at that time, and they'd all struggled in secondary education. So they're now between the ages of 16 and 21, and this is fully scripted by them. The resources were chosen by them. It is their film to support us in making schools better. So I'll show you this one first, and let's hope we have sound.
We all made this box, and on the outside it explains what other people saw in us during comp, and then on the inside we've wrote down what they've missed. I'm smart, I'm loyal, I like drawing.
One box doesn't fit all.
We want every young person who leaves secondary school to reach their full potential,
To rise to their ambitions.
To be ready to take flight on the next part of their journey. There can be many obstacles on our paths in secondary school.
I was always trying to fit in,
It can be easy to be blinded.
Not to see us as individuals.
but on my journey through secondary school,
There were places and faces that supported me.
places I could go to where I felt safe.
A space to go when things get too much.
A place to be able to calm down.
Or be able to talk to somebody who can help.
A chill room.
When I was in primary, they had a place to be, and I used to go there like every day if I got bullied or if something's happened that made us feel sad, and the teacher that was in there would help us. So I think secondary schools should also have that, because it will help all the children to like process like a lot of their feelings in there. So I think place to be will be a really good improvement of schools.
There's a power in relationships with people you can trust.
Having somebody who knows your story.
Who you can trust and who is trained to support you.
My form tutor, Miss Warner, she was there for me through everything. When stuff was happening at home, she would be the one I would talk to, and she would sit me down and have a big, massive conversation about it, try and make me feel better, and try and make me say that even though stuff was going on, that there's still good things. And when people were saying stuff and doing stuff, I would be the one to go up to her and tell her, and she would sit me down and talk to me, and then she would either try and talk to the head of year or try and talk to the students themselves.
I had a lot of support from my teachers when I had a difficult time with my family. If I'm down and if I need help, they're there. I was really upset at the time, and this helped us through a lot of stuff. Yeah, it did change my life when I could have somebody to talk to. It's so important we've got enough support.
I never had a happy life. Being in school with that happening made it harder to communicate. Always felt alone and a hard time making friends. And I never had help with that. And I feel like that should be changed. Someone like the social worker I work with should always be in school, because they actually really helped
an everything officer, so you can go to them for support for everything and everything. An everything officer is somebody who can help you mental health support wise and help you through school and help deal with somebody who's bullying you maybe or picking on you. Could help you with anxiety. You could just be having a bad day and you could go speak to someone who you could go out to trust and talk to about anything. Someone like that would help a lot of people and myself with coping through school and with mental health, with stress of exams and things like that.
I think everyone should have a teacher like Miss Warner to talk to. I could leave lesson and go talk to her. I was allowed to. Even if she was in a lesson, she would still come out and talk to us. And I think every single student needs a teacher like that, because if not, then we're all just going to struggle. And the more we're struggling, the more education gets down instead of up through the roof.
Secondary school needs to be a place where we feel safe.
Where we feel secure.
A place where we keep each other safe in school and outside of school. A place where we feel empowered.
Safe to be who we are.
Empowered to share who we are with the world.
To do whatever our hearts desire.
In 2021, I made 2 my own songs. And when it got to year 11, I got a random bag that I owned. I decided to put speakers inside of it. I teach myself how to build speakers. No one teach me to do that. No one teach me to make music. And I think school should have clubs where you can make whatever you want and be able to learn by making stuff that you have ideas for. There are more people out there like me who have hidden talents and opportunities that people won't be able to see, when people should see that they can do that. And if the people right now having the opportunities to do what they want, that's what makes them them. And you can't take that away from them, because that's how you make a person and how they be happy by creating stuff, thinking about stuff, drawing stuff. I don't think one way of teaching works for everyone. Every young person is different and learns in different ways. Having choice in what I learn and how I learn. So at the end of this journey,
I've got everything I need to help me on my next adventure.
To help me get off to a flying start.
So I can be who I really am.
look at what I can do.
Look at what I can do.
Look at what I can do.
Look at what we can do. Together we can build a school that will work for everyone.
Brick by brick.
Building on strong foundations.
Foundations that will help us spread our wings.
And get off to a flying start.
In achieving our dreams and ambitions. I'm going to be a mechanic.
I'm going to be a mechanic.
I'm going to be a beautician.
I'm going to be a manga designer.
Okay, I'm just going to reduce that one. Hopefully you're still with me. Hang on a second, where is it? And that's changed screen. So also in that, if you scroll down where that link to the film is, you'll see there's an early years foundation stage, a secondary as well, and parents. So you can look at the films from the 4-year-olds right through to the older children. I haven't got time to show you another one because I'm aware it's 25 too. But please do take a look at the Pull Up a Chair. It would be great to have people trying out similar projects in their local areas too. Okay, phase 7 very quickly is the blanket of 2,999 squares. This started off with £3,000 worth of funding, and people donated squares. You can see some here. That's 2 in England, and at the moment we are with a group of parents who've had children excluded from school. We're creating 4,191 crocheted squares like this. They're smaller, they're 5 centimeters by 5, and then that will go around the country as well if we can get the funding to support conversations to reduce exclusions in local areas. And that is the end of the show. But what I would like to show you very quickly is on here. If I go to the early years tab, what you can see is there are training materials. So this is predominantly for schools, but can be used in other services as well. So this is all from the voices of the various 400 children I've spoken to. And it's looking at, in the pack, it's a training resource. It's about 4.5 hours across each theme. So the first theme is recognising and responding to adversities. The training resource takes you through a series of CPD sessions to deliver, and it directs you to each of these films and when to play them. So there's the recognising and responding to adversity films. And film 6 is in there that I mentioned at the start. And film 7. The next theme is the importance of belonging, relationships and connections. Again, there's a training resource and a PowerPoint slides, and it directs you to these films. They're all free to use. All of this doesn't cost money. And then the last theme is finding solutions to prevent exclusion from school. So I'd love more time to show you another film. Please do have a look, and if we can get these out to as many schools as possible, and health and children's social care, I think that would be really positive. Yeah, would love people to get in touch and get involved. I want to stop sharing and take questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's
all right, and you could hear everything. And I know the film was long, but it's young people, and that was their gift to us. So it feels right that I shared that with you. I hope that's good. Can I just say, when you're showing the other films on school exclusion, you do need to give a bit of a warning to who's going to watch them, just to say, if you need to step away, please do, because some of the films talk about issues and experiences that some people might find upsetting.
That was fantastic, Sarah. Thank you so much. It's really inspiring to hear about all these different approaches and really creative ways of doing research and giving children voice. Yeah, if anybody has questions, please put them in the chat or raise your hand. And I'm sure there's lots to talk about and reflect on.
It's all very quiet.
No.
I didn't know how to raise my hand. I was just trying to look then, but thank you for that. That was really quite inspiring, actually. I was just wondering, in terms of the creative aspect, whether you have a background in do you have a creative background, or did you start off in research, or how it came to be the way it did, whether you were more research or creative, or it's two things that you're interested in that have come together?
No, it's interesting when I think about that. I come from a creative family. So my brother's really creative, my cousin's really creative, and I'm absolutely not. But I think I've got a creative mind. Like, I can go, oh, wings, they'd look fabulous, and they are. But then that's why I work with a theatre maker, because I'm good at supporting children to tell stories, but I'm not into role play. Not that we do role play depending on the group, but having someone like Ruth who's really talented at that, and then Laura who's really talented, and Pav who I've worked with around film, it's getting that right team together and using your skills. So I've got all the ideas, and I can, like the brick thing, like I love bricks. So I was like, oh, if we could get them to build a school, what could we use? And then it's just that it's bouncing ideas, isn't it? You don't have to have all of the skills, but you can see in that film, I think, that the children are creative. None of them at the start were going to go near the camera, and at the end they're on the beach and they're like, film me, you know, with their wings on. It was fabulous. Yes. So in short answer, Kat, no, not in ability. I can't draw or paint or any of that, but I found it to be the best way in to support children to say what they want to say in the way they want to say it. Hope that answers your question.
It does, thank you.
We've got a question in the chat from Charlie, who asks, what are the different challenges you faced doing this kind of work?
The challenges are bringing together children or young people who have never met, with different types of interests, strengths, needs. So in that first film you saw, there was a young person who I was told would only stay 10 minutes. So he'll stay 10 minutes, but then he's probably not going to stay any longer than that. And I found out his interests, which one of them included Lego. So I took Lego, and he loved Kit Kats. So I took Kit Kats and Lego. just so they were there available to help him feel more comfortable in the environment. And that's challenging. He actually stayed the full time and wants to do another project in the end, but that's the challenge. And my upcoming project is children not in school, and that's going to be the biggest challenge, because there's not that gatekeeper of head teachers, Senkos. These children are all in their homes predominantly, so I'm going to be working with 12 children who are probably very anxious. So lots of anxious children in the same space. So that's a very different approach. I'm having conversations with parents about their interests, what things they like to do, what they like to drink, what they like to eat, and then trying to have a 2-minute or 2-second hello to them on a phone call with the parent there, and building that relationship, showing them a picture of me, doing a little video snapping, like, hi, I'm Sarah, and but not being too much. It's getting that balance. I think that's the bit, this one, the not in school pull up a chair, I think is going to be the most challenging. Also, the children from Ukraine, the 3 films, it's like, do you mention the war? Do you not mention the war? And they were actually, please talk to us about the war, because nobody dare talk about the war, and we want to talk about the war. So you've really got to take the lead from the group you're working with, because they're all so very different. So yeah, there are challenges. And I think that's the challenge, is making sure that the children are fully supported and feel comfortable and feel safe. And that when they do become upset, that you're there. And but it's also the point of withdrawing, isn't it? After 5 days of a pull-up chair, you do become attached to them, and I'm sure some of them become attached to you. And it's then making sure you go back and you say, this is, and every day we'll show them bits of footage of what we've recorded, showing them of the film, giving them that ownership of the film. Is there anything you'd like to change? Is there anything you'd like to, say or repeat, or, and it's just, it's their film. And they all say it's their gift. They want to help future children coming through to have a better experience. Please do it. Please try it. Even if you email me, I'll help you. Like, if you want to, it's quite, you get so much. They get so much. I know the children I've worked with, they've grown more confident, they felt empowered, they felt like they have a voice, and they're proud of the film. And you don't get that with a one-to-one conversation, going into a school, talking to a child about, tell me about your exclusion. It feels more human in a way. Costs more money to do a pull-up a chair because of the people you have to bring together in that space. But yeah, very much worth it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sarah. Kia has a question as well.
Hi, Sarah. You're right. I just 2 questions really. One kind of related to your last point that was around funding, and I was just wondering if you faced any kind of pushback on funding this kind of research where it's slightly less traditional, I guess. Or my second question is just kind of about your next project where you're working with children who've been excluded, and you mentioned not having that gatekeeper person, and I was wondering what your approach to recruitment is going to be for that.
Yeah, so I think the first thing is the pushback thing is, I'm now quite insistent. I'm like, I'll do conversations. I don't call them interviews with children. I'll do a conversation with a child, but I'll do it as part of a pull-up a chair. So as part of a pull-up a chair, I might do a bit of a one-to-one chat after a couple of days, and I will go and have a conversation. I've done a recent project commissioned by Shine where I've gone in and had focus groups with children. I'll still do that. But I think where it's a really complex issue, like children not in school as an example, it needs to be different. We need to give them the time they deserve. So I normally will say, I'll do this outline of a project that might involve conversations with Senkos or whatever, interviews with Senkos. But for the children, I think we need to do a pull up a chair. And I remain quite insistent. And I think because pull up a chair has done well in terms of supporting local areas, and it's a little bit known, that it's easier to do that now. The pull up, to get to your next question, Kia, the gatekeeper side, so Parent Carer Forum. So I'm working with, it's Northumberland County Council, so they've been absolutely fantastic in connecting me with people. They we've made flyers, so the flyers are online. They're sent out to Parent Carer Forum groups. They're sent to educational psychologists that are working with children, people who are going out to schools. I've gone to head teachers as well. So I've gone to head teachers who I know are working with children in alternative provision, who aren't, because they will have children who are struggling to come to school. They then are taking it to steering groups and heads forum meetings and other things. And then I got an email yesterday from a parent who'd seen that. So it's just a really different approach, and it's thinking Facebook groups, trying to get into a parent Facebook group and say, just share the flyer and say if anyone's interested. So the pull up chair would typically have 12 children. At the moment, that tends to be the number that's workable, because obviously all children aren't going to turn up every day as well. So yeah, the recruitments, you've just got to think, where are these people? So I'm going to go along to some Parent Carer Forum events as well, which is, I've done that before with the very young children who were 4. I went to playgroups where I knew the children were going to be and their parents. It sounds like weird, doesn't it, saying that? I went to playgroups without a child, but agreed with the person who was running that provision that, why don't you come along to a playgroup and meet some of the parents? So it's just finding those, I suppose, less traditional ways in as well. Yeah. Good questions, Kia. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Rebecca's asking if you might share a link to your pull up a chair work. I don't know if you've got access to the chat. It would be wonderful.
Yeah. And I'm happy for I'll need to send the slides as well. So I'll put that in there. Mm-hmm. So I think a pull up a chair, the cost varies. For a pull up a chair, it's not as much as you would think. Let me find the chat. Sorry, I'm not used to this chat.
Oh, don't worry at all.
Here we go. And I'll also put my email address.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Christina, I think I've just sent that to you.
It's all right. I'll share it with everybody. Yeah. In the meantime, does anybody else have any questions? If not, I have a question, because I was quite interested in the creative work that you also seem to be doing with parents. And I was wondering if there's a difference there, because I can see how children, there's less of a barrier maybe to engage in these kind of creative and playful aspects of research, whereas parents might have more of a hesitancy. And I was just wondering how you felt about that and what experiences you have around that.
Yeah, so when I did the pull up a chair parents, in a way it was harder to get parents to, it's a big ask, isn't it, 5 days? So we tend to do 10 till 2, so we can do school pickups and things. But I think parents, in a way, it's harder than with children, because they can feel quite isolated. But we did the pull up a chair films, and then they're the same parents that I'm continuing to work with, not all of them, on the Blanket 299 and the Blanket 4191 project. Again, it's finding the way in, but actually a lot of the activities, like this was what with the parents, that they want to do it, they want to express themselves in creative ways, and it's you facilitating that, I suppose, in the best way possible. I had hoped that we would, I think what we need is a way to have a larger group of parents who we can do similar, replicate this project in other areas as well. Not quite thought through how best to do that yet, but it would be great to get some pull-up chairs happening beyond the northeast, to see the impact that can have in other areas. Led by parents and led by children would be the ideal way to do that, but we're not quite there yet.
Thank you. You had asked me to remind you of crochet squares.
Yes, so
Yes.
sorry.
So,
Can I just say, I couldn't crochet for project 2999. The blanket is 9 meters by 8 meters of crocheted squares. Each one had to be bordered. We didn't realize at the start. We'd asked them to be 10 centimeters by 10. People kindly sent them, but they were like ranged from 4 centimeters by 4 centimeters to 16 by 16. Anyway, the blanket was made. And then as the parents wanted to make a blanket to represent 4191, we were going to make a phoenix with 4,191 feathers, but the logistics and costs meant we couldn't do that. So we're making this new blanket with 4,191 squares. Now, what we're fortunate about is the School of Public Health Research funded the 299 blanket with a fund, the 3,000 PPIE fund, which was really helpful. And then really supportively, I then got the Impact Accelerator Award, which has funded it to Tour England. And then I'm hoping to also get funding for 4191, because these squares are 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters. So if anybody, this is an absolute beg, has any relatives, oh, you've got a square, Leslie. Oh, Leslie's got squares. Sorry, I get very excited. So yeah, if anyone can make 5 centimeter by 5 centimeter squares and send them, I would be so appreciative, because 4,191 squares is a lot to get contributed. Be so grateful. I'm hoping the blanket's going to launch at a free event at the University of Sunderland on the 3rd of July. You are all welcome. It's free. I'm hoping someone might give me some funding for some lunch and refreshments for everybody, but you're more than welcome to come to that. There'll be lots of speakers and workshops and other things happening for that. But yeah, any squares or any help would just be gratefully received. And then hopefully I'll be able to secure some funding to tour both blankets next year and just keep it going, because they are rising again for the year after. We cannot keep this level of exclusions happening.
Kia has another question, but in the meantime, Kat is saying Kat can crochet, Dahlia can crochet. So details of the size and where to post them to, should they just get in touch with you by email?
Yeah, get in touch by email at the 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters and just to post my university address. But I've got a flyer, but I can't see how I attach on here.
That's fine. You can send it to me afterwards and we can share that with everybody.
Sorry, my question was related to the sizing. My mother-in-law's here who crochets. She's in my house, so I just asked her and she was like, oh yeah, I'll be happy to. Can you ask how big the chain should be? So yeah.
I don't know what that means. But
no, I don't know. I don't crochet.
They're about 5 by 5. It's 2 rows round. It's like a row and then a row. I've had to learn to crochet to do this last year's project. So as long as they're about 5 by 5, they don't have to be exact. They can be a bit bigger, a bit smaller. Yeah, and now I've just got, like, people are starting to send them to the university. I've got a packet here. There's about 100 in there. But yeah, that would be great. If she could make any, that would be really, really appreciated. But I can send the flyer. And then it'd be great to see someone at the event if you're local and can make it. Or crochet hook size. Oh, I think there are 5, but the wool's quite thick. You see how thick? That's probably not helpful.
I think it depends. I think we can all like animate all our crochet and crafty friends. And Leslie says there's a lot of YouTube videos as well if somebody wants to learn a skill.
That is so kind. You're all wonderful. Thank you.
Kat had a question as well.
I was just going to see whether you could get it on the next SPHR newsletter or on the, on the SPHR site that we have.
I'm just about to send
Just to
out the
check.
CYPF newsletter, Sarah, so like literally in the next week. So if you send me some details that you want putting in it, then that would be fab.
That would be incredible. Oh, aren't you brilliant? And I think I'm hoping to get it to Bristol for the blanket, the 299 blanket, in May, perhaps. I don't know if I've been invited to bring it. I don't know if I'm just decided that I should do that. I'll have to find out. Yeah.
That's fabulous.
Anything we can do. So the blanket's been to like Redcar Cleveland. It's currently in London at Chance UK. It's next going to the Council for Disabled Children. It's yeah, so it's doing good work. I think there's something about when you see the 299 blanket, like I talk about how each square in that blanket represents a child, and each of those children have a story. And you remember I showed that theograph at the start, like it's what can we learn about this child? What could we have done differently? And also some of the squares are starting to unravel and others aren't. So it's like some children where there is a suspension or permanent exclusion can come back to school and they can re-engage and everything's fine, whereas other children don't get that. They might have one of the children who's I'm currently working with has had 8 different secondary schools, and there's so much going on that we need to think about how can we disrupt this pattern and what can we do differently. So yeah, it's doing something like a huge community creative arts project is a really powerful way of having a conversation about, okay, and I'm not creative, but I'm surrounded by it at the moment. My office, you would think, honestly, you could, it's all creative, because I've found that to be the best way, the most powerful way of getting people involved.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you so much again, Sarah, for coming and presenting your research and like sparking all these really important conversations. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up at this point, but I'm sure Sarah would be happy to continue any conversations if you get in touch with her by email. And just to do a little announcement as well for next week on the 19th of February at 12:30, we'll have Joe Langley from Sheffield Hallam University talking to us about creative and participatory methods for impact in public health research. So very excited about that as well. And thanks everybody for coming, asking questions, and thanks again to Sarah for the wonderful presentation today.
Thank you, Christina, and thank you, everybody. See you soon.
See you soon.